I'm sorry. My legs give out. I'm here today in 2010 as the first recipient of the Rawson Global Citizens Award. I would never have believed it. However, longevity has its benefits. So I am here now privileged to accept this award on behalf of the thousands who have labored with me since the founding of our movement for a peaceful and just world governed by law. As you know, the world has changed in the last, in the last 100 years, more than any other time in the history of mankind. Unfortunately, while most cases have been for the better, there are still too many where it's been for the worse. However, I'm glad to say on balance, the change has been clearly positive. I have a few examples of what has happened over the last 70 to 80 years. When I was around 27, when I was having stomach pains and worried it might be colon cancer, I still remember my doctor's diagnosis. "Don't worry, Ed," he said. "By the time we discover your condition, it'll be too late. We can't do anything about it." Of course, today it could be a controllable disease, particularly if discovered earlier. The most significant change has been in the media communication area. The best description of how things are different is a comic strip where two little girls are watching a senior using the hall telephone. One child remarks, "Grandma is so old-fashioned. All her phone can do is talk." The long-distance call used to mean that either a crisis or a happy event, such as the birth of a child, had occurred. Today, many people make more long-distance calls than local. With few exceptions, you can contact by email, text messaging, and Skyping with almost anybody at any time, anywhere in the world. If you turn on the TV news, it is just as likely to be some worldwide crisis rather than a domestic problem. I recall there were big earthquakes in Japan and China when I was growing up, and no one was worried or could do anything. And if we wanted to help, victims would have probably, taken at least 2 weeks to get to the site of the disasters. We live in the irrevocably integrated internet world with problems which no nation can solve alone. Our challenge is finding the right system or structure for solving such critical problems as pandemic diseases, terrorism, nuclear proliferation, global pollution, and worldwide economic collapses. As centuries go by, our planet has become more unified. Thousands of years ago, people lived in caves, knew little beyond their next-door neighbor. Today, unless you're a hermit, you know more about what's going on in the world and how it affects you than you do about your next-door neighbor. Most of us live under some form of democracy, but unfortunately there are still too many dictatorships. As we gradually realize we are world citizens, we also become aware that citizenship to be responsible for certain global solutions. Last weekend at George Washington University, First Lady Michelle Obama told graduating students that so many of today's challenges are borderless, from the economy to terrorism to climate change, and that solving those problems demands cooperation with others. That sounds familiar? It's clear that our core beliefs are accepted by mainstream thinkers now, so that our task is to push the boundaries of what is possible and step by step create the world that we envision. We need an effective democratic system for the many problems plaguing the world, many of which were unknown a century or two ago. For example, kidnapping of children by a spouse from a different country has become a major problem. While progress has been made in resolving this issue, there still needs to be an enforceable, legal, impartial system to determine who should be responsible for caring for a child when parents internationally split up. Somali pirates are a problem, and they have enough money to contest their seizure. I have a legal friend whose firm is working with an international bankruptcy. Actually, he's working on an international bankruptcy, and is having difficulty determining as to whether the foreign or the U.S. court should have jurisdiction. There should be an international court to deal with these issues, possibly modeled to be the way disputes are handled by regional organizations such as NAFTA, European Union, World Trade. Whoopsie, we missed a page here. Organization of the groups. They can present a regional position before an international court or authority. Ever since its founding, the United Nations has been crippled by the veto power of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, which has meant that many cases calling for strong steps have became weak action. For example, what is needed is some sort of trusteeship for the failing states. Although major charities have been able to house and feed over 2 million refugees from Darfur, they have been seriously handicapped by the failure of the developed world to provide troops to protect and resolve the Darfurian situation. Also, Western countries were largely helpless, as Zimbabwe changed from being the breadbasket of Southern Africa to being the basket case. We're coming to the end, you'll be glad to know. While prospects for change in the UN Charter to permit more effective action for prevention or restoring failed states are being seriously considered, it's unlikely anything significant will happen for at least 25 years. In good part, the reason for serious consideration of making UN more effective can be contributed to my longtime friend and fellow CGS leader, Mike Kronish, who I hope is around someplace. He has spent the last several years traveling around the globe, visiting foreign ministries and member representatives at the UN, explaining and promoting ways to give real equitable power to the UN General Assembly, and he has been ably helped by Lucy Webster. The G20 recognizes the need for a global governance system for the financial world. It is time for the concept of responsibility to protect, R2P, which has been signed onto by most of the nations of the world, to be implemented. This commitment theoretically requires that when the governing body of a nation fails to protect its citizens, other nations have a duty to remedy the situation. Also, at the same time, there is a global planning for a modern Haiti. There should be a similar international body working on a plan for strict supervision of nuclear states and ways to free misgoverned countries from mismanaged dictatorial leaderships. It is clear that war is no longer an option to resolve disputes. No nation can stand alone. The time has come to cooperate with other nations to achieve a peaceful and prosperous world. So to all of you here, and to the future recipients of this reward, I say, dream big and carry on. We have our work cut out for us. Thank you. Thank you all again.
And thank you, Ed. Thank you very much. I look forward to